This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America for this Thursday afternoon. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us here. Coming up a little later on, we have John DeSilva from RacingWithBruno.com. We'll discuss some racing for this afternoon. Also look out at the Stymie, which will be Saturday down at Aqueduct. A little later on, Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. According to their Twitter feed, Laurel is canceled for this afternoon. But we'll talk a little bit with Dave about the weekend stakes action, the Campbell and the Fritchie both on Saturday. And Frank Miramati from Oaklawn Park will wrap things up for us. We'll talk a little Oaklawn for this afternoon, so long as he verifies that they are racing today, but one way or the other. We'll also talk about their nice weekend of stakes action. They're going to have the Essex, the rescheduled King Cotton on Saturday, and then out on the holiday on Monday, they have the Southwest, which is shaping up to be a very, very nice three-year-old race. All of that coming up today. Don't forget, do want to remind you that throughout the remainder of the month of February, some nice promotions available at Capital OTB, either here at the Racebook, on the website, or out at the various branches. Kicking off this weekend, a couple of Showviver contests on the next couple of Saturdays. Those are via capitalotb.com. Saturday the 15th, Saturday the 22nd, Showviver contests. On the 15th, there's a Fan Appreciation Day at the Cleats branch. So if you're a regular customer there, be sure to stop over on Saturday and enjoy that. Coming up on Saturday the 22nd, Prize Wheel Day down at the Clubhouse Racebook right here, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Plenty of fun as some randomly selected folks will get to spin the prize wheel. Coming up on the next couple of Mondays, a $100 knockout challenge down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Those will focus on Aqueduct racing on those Monday afternoons. So again, the next two Mondays, $100 knockout challenge here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Also at the Racebook on Friday the 21st, the return of Brian Nadeau with the $500 happy hour bankroll. And on the 23rd, via the capitalotb.com website, there will be a Sunday Syndicate bankroll. And as always, you can find out more information about those promotions if you pop on over to capitalotb.com. News and notes over the past day or two. Fairgrounds, the racetrack has their own Hall of Fame, and it's an active kind of a situation where every year they announce some folks to put in. When I was down at the fairgrounds, I went by the wall where they have the photos and whatnot posted, and it's certainly there are some nice big names. I think it's a nice little addition to their racetrack, and the Fairgrounds Hall of Fame inductees for 2014 have been announced, all notable. Proud Spell, Brett Calhoun, and Larry Robideau Jr. So a couple of trainers in there of note, and also Proud Spell, who of course Proud Spell annexed both the Kentucky Oaks and a little bit earlier the Fairground Oaks. So she had that Oaks double in the year of 2008. Proud Spell and her trainer noted that they were extremely ecstatic when they were told about the induction into the Fairgrounds Hall of Fame, owned by Brereton Jones, and he has some nice runners with Larry Jones down there at Fairgrounds this season. So again, inducted in the 2014 Fairgrounds Hall of Fame, Proud Spell, Brett Calhoun, and Larry Robideau Jr. Interesting story, and I'll ask Dave Rodman when we have him on about this. This was available on thisisHorseRacing.com, website of the Clancy brothers. Nice little article, and you can check it out yourself for a little more in-depth story. But there is an apprentice on the Maryland circuit that is worth maybe paying a little bit of attention to. Apprentice's name is Muhammad Osman. He's worth paying attention to because he's an apprentice at age 33. He's also a Somali immigrant, came over here and he was working in a hotel and had kind of his introduction to horse racing, watching Rachel Alexandra beat the boys at the Preakness over at Pimlico. And from there, he decided, I'd kind of like to be a jockey. So he went around asking people, how do I become a jockey? At the time, he was working at the front desk at a hotel. He was subsequently promoted, but he quit his job to go start working with the babies, breaking them in South Carolina. After South Carolina, moved back to Maryland and started to hone his skills. Became a bug boy and got his first win on January 15th on a horse named Princess Bouquet. So he's now a 10-pound apprentice, 33 years old. Again, Muhammad Osman. And as I say, you can find a little bit more in-depth story on the thisishorseracing.com website of the Clancy brothers. But it's just an interesting, and as I say, I'll ask Dave Rodman about him, because that is certainly an unusual situation. Introduced to the game and decided to become a jockey at age 31, first winner at age 33. But given that, I think the guy has a certain level of enthusiasm for the game. So it'll be fun to watch and see how he does as he progresses through the weight allowances of the apprentice ranks there in Maryland. Investigation was completed over in Europe. Sheikh Mohammed exonerated in the investigation into the drug scandals in horse racing, those doping incidents that involved Sheikh Mohammed's horses over in Europe that hit and made some news about a year ago. According to the Telegraph newspaper over there in Britain, an investigation into the multiple drug scandals to hit the equine empire of Sheikh Mohammed has exposed, quote, from the investigation report, management failings, insufficient oversight, and complacency, unquote, within the organization. But the investigation cleared the ruler of Dubai of any wrongdoing. Now, it is notable that they commissioned the investigation, but the investigation was independently held by Lord Stevens, who was the former Metropolitan Police Commissioner. He then went on to recommend an independent internal compliance unit with sweeping powers to examine any part of that Sheikh Mohammed racing operation. The newspaper notes, however, that the full findings of Lord Stevens' renowned team of investigators, including precisely who was to blame for dragging the reputation of the Sheikh's empire through the mud, those findings were controversially not disclosed. So investigation came out. It exonerates Sheikh Mohammed, but still a little controversy maybe based on that investigation, according to the British newspapers that have covered it within the past few hours, over the last day or so. But you can certainly go to Google. I have a couple of articles up on Equidaily as well if you want to find out a little bit more about that investigation, the findings they did release, again, within the past day or so. Speaking of Maryland racing, nice article and websites and articles to take a look at. You can pop on over to Frank Vesby's RacingBiz.com. He's got a nice article about the Maryland racing community and their adoption of the new medical rules that have kind of become the law of the land in the mid-Atlantic states that are now really kind of spreading across the country as a uniform set of medication rules across the country. But it is notable as they get adopted jurisdiction by jurisdiction how well that's happening, and this kind of covers how well it's gone since the start of the year in Maryland. According to Frank Vesby, things seem to be going pretty well. Last week, Maryland took the next step in that they named a new drug testing lab. That was an important step for them. 6 weeks into the regional program, Vesby says, they're getting a high level of acceptance among the new rules. So the State Racing Commission chairman says he's heard no complaints, 0 at this point. They did maybe have some hiccups and some slight criticisms with the Lasix rule. The Lasix rule is similar to what we saw that got off to a rocky start 6 months ago or so, maybe a little longer down in Kentucky. And the Lasix rule is no more private vets. Now it's state vets will administer the Lasix. And again, that caused some consternation down in Kentucky and maybe a little tweaking of the rules. Seems like maybe a similar situation in Maryland. But again, as we watch these get rolled out jurisdiction to jurisdiction, as these things are ironed out and tweaked, you hope that as it moves to a next jurisdiction, that then gets adopted there. And so, the typical kind of starting obstacles you would have in anything like this are being ironed out and are being addressed. But it seems like so far in Maryland, these new medication rules are going through fairly well. Next up will be the adoption of rules for violations. They're looking at a point system for violations. There's a nice section in the article that addresses that, talking to some trainers, and it really seems like most trainers are on board with this, in that right now some serious violators almost seem to get away with a slap on the wrist and a 2-week vacation, and they're talking now about, hey, if you get multiple violations at the highest level, we really need some serious penalties. And some of, as I say, some of the horsemen address that and seem to be right on board. And that's next up for this set of uniform medication rules that, again, is taking hold in the Mid-Atlantic area, including New York, and is spreading across the country. But as I say, you get a little update on how it's going so far in Maryland via Frank Vespe's TheRacingBiz.com website, so you can certainly check that out. Coming up on the weekend, the entries have come out for some of the weekend races, and down at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, they have a couple of nice stakes races. The Very One Grade 3 event, mile and 3/8 on the turf. Agua Marine for Christophe Clement, who came over from Europe and was fairly lightly raced since the move over here. The first start after arriving from Europe was back in November of 2012, a nice third place finish, a very close third place finish in the Long Island at Aqueduct. Followed that up in March of last year with a nice optional claiming win here at Gulfstream, and then kind of went in the wrong direction. A March race and came back in November in the Long Island again at Aqueduct. Now he's had another little bit of a layoff. But again, in the Very One on the weekend, I think Agua Marine could be interesting off just another little bit of a layoff. I think this horse showed some nice ability and potential on the move to the United States initially. So I would expect this one to offer up. Again, at some point we'll get back to that. And this another little layoff here wouldn't surprise me if on the weekend that one runs well. Preferential from Bill Mott, I think, is going to be very interesting. Off since a win in the Dowager at Keeneland, that was back in October. So the layoff is maybe a little bit of a concern, but I think that one, another European import, will be a contender, and yet another European import from Tom Albatrani and Godolphin and Jazz, who hasn't been seen since running second in the Weah up at Saratoga. But again, this is a European import that I think has shown earlier in the career maybe a little bit of talent, and the layoff's a concern, but it's Albatrani Godolphin. You expect this one to be ready to roll. Also on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, the Mac Diarmida Grade 2 200,000 purse. Again, a mile and 3/8. This time this is for the boys, and this one is an interesting field. The Mac Diarmida Slumber for Bill Mott, I think, is going to attract a lot of attention. Maybe needed the last start. The Fort Lauderdale will appreciate, I think, the added distance on Saturday. Twilight Eclipse in for Tom Albatrani and our friends at West Point. Twilight Eclipse, who ran so well here at Gulfstream last winter. We finished fourth in the Mac Diarmida, but then had that incredible record-breaking performance in the Pan American. So this horse has shown an affinity for this Gulfstream Park turf course. And again, with that record-breaking performance last year, Twilight Eclipse on the weekend will be interesting to watch. Amen Kitten for Wesley Ward comes in off a nice third-place finish in the Hollywood Derby for owner Ken Ramsey. And most interesting, perhaps, in the Mac Diarmida on the weekend at Gulfstream is going to be Alpha for Kieran McLaughlin and Godolphin. Alpha, of course, we remember back in 2012 being a dead heat winner of the Travers right up here at Saratoga, dead heated with Golden Ticket that day, and has never really lived up to that. Now, did have the slight upset win in the Woodward over the sloppy track at Saratoga last summer, but then followed that up without showing too much. So this is a horse that on occasion has popped through, but being a Travers winner always will attract our attention, and attracts attention on the weekend because this horse is making the turf debut for Godolphin and Kieran McLaughlin. So Alpha in the Mac Diarmida could be a little bit interesting. Other races, and again, over the next day, if we get a chance, we'll continue talking about some of these, but certainly tomorrow as well. Santa Maria at Santa Anita on Saturday is going to be interesting, and also Saturday up at Golden Gate, the El Camino Real Derby, Grade 3 for 3-year-olds. Tamarindo Enterprising for Proctor with Stevens going up to ride. A couple of horses also from Southern California, a Baffert runner, Icy Ride, and I'll wrap it up for Doug O'Neill The El Camino Real looks kind of interesting also. All right, we're going to head to our first commercial. As we do, just wanted to show you the stakes race from Aqueduct this past week. We'll watch the stretch run here just as I kind of set up the commercial break, but I wanted to show the Dearly Precious last Saturday. It was for 3-year-old fillies, and it was a very, very convincing win for Gracer at 1-5. Gracer, in 5 starts prior to this, had 3 wins and just was showing a lot of talent for Tony Dutrow. Validated all of that talent and validated the 1-5 price this past Saturday, winning by over 10 lengths in a very decent time. So Gracer was going to turn out to be a very nice 3-year-old sprint filly, certainly. However, that said, she's subsequently been retired. Came out of this race with a ding. Gracer has now been retired. So this was the career finale. Gracer leaves the track with 4 wins in 6 career starts, a second and a third place finish, and over a couple of $100,000 in earnings. So unfortunately, Gracer will go to the sidelines, but a really nice performance on the weekend in the Dearly Precious. We'll talk a little more New York racing with John DeSilva after this. We'll get some of his thoughts for this afternoon's racing. He'll look out at some of the tracks that will be running, but we'll also get some of his thoughts on the weekend down at Aqueduct. The Stymie will be run there on Saturday. All of that up next. John DeSilva, Racing with Bruno. A little later, Dave Rodman from Laurel, and we'll wrap things up today with Frank Miramati from Oaklawn Park. Stay tuned. Racing Across America will continue.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB Bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now, as always, by John DeSilva of RacingWithBruno.com. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How's everybody on this snowy day?
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit during the break. Give folks an update. You're down in the New York area, obviously, and you've already got some word for Aqueduct for tomorrow.
Yes, unfortunately, Well, I guess fortunately, you want to be safe. They've already canceled racing for tomorrow. As of now, Aqueduct of Belmont is still open for simulcasting, but there will be no live racing tomorrow, which is probably a good thing because you want to make sure everybody can get there safe, there's no problems, and we want to make sure we could run on Saturday for the Showviber.
And you said that it's already snowing pretty heavily down by you.
It's snowing pretty heavily, lots of big flakes, and there's also lots of wind, which is really gusting a lot. I mean, schools try to open. In New York City, they still are open, which has been a little controversial. But on Long Island, a lot of schools tried a 2-hour delay, and it just didn't work out. They decided to just shut it down completely.
Yeah. I was saying to you on the break, we're just on the cusp of it, but we're looking at 8 to 10 overnight tonight, too. So it's a crazy storm, and certainly it's affecting some of the tracks. But that said, you've shifted some of your attention for this afternoon. A couple other venues, Fairgrounds and Oaklawn. We'll take a look at some of those races, and then also we'll look out at the weekend, the Stymie down at Aqueduct. But let's kick things off. Your thoughts on Fairgrounds' 7th race today, which is an allowance optional claimer. The optional claiming tags, $12,000. The allowance condition, $5,000. Scheduled on the turf at 1 mile and 16. What did you see in the 7th today?
I'm looking at number 9, Black Wing. Now, this is a horse who hasn't run since May, but is trained by Gary Scherer, who is not a bad trainer. He does pretty good off the layoff. This is a horse who ran second last time. The horse did run on the grass, but they did take it off the grass. The horse did run second as a favorite in Canterbury in the mud. Now, this is a horse who should be coming from off the pace, and I think there will be enough speed in the race that this horse could close into. And Eddie Martin, yes, he hasn't had the greatest of meets, but he is a veteran, and he still is capable of getting the job done.
All right, sounds good. And we're getting 8 to 1 on the morning line. I like that as well. And comes back from something of a layoff, but a nice steady string of works out underneath. And again, that 8 to 1 price certainly looks a little attractive. All right, let's just shift our attention now over to Oaklawn for this afternoon. Their 5th race today, a maiden special weight event. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. They're going to go 6 furlongs. Your thoughts on the 5th at Oaklawn?
No, I think the favored entry of Muchajava and Hazala is from Shadwell Stable is going to get bet pretty heavily. But I'm going to go with a horse who has some experience here, which is number 6, Emma Lushka. Now, this is a horse who finished pretty well to be third, going 6 furlongs in January 16th on the Castanon. Now Lucas switches over to Roberto Arroyo Jr., who is leading rider down there right now. Comes in with a nice bullet work on February 2nd of 36 and change. And they will be running today. I spoke to a couple of people. The temperatures, I think, will be 40s and 50s, so there should be no problems this time of them running. And I think Emma Lushka is going to be a nice price here. And we may not get 8 to 1. We get bet down a little bit, but as long as the favorite entry is in there, I think we'll get some value. Yeah,
and that nice bullet workouts may show some intent. That bullet on February 2nd may show a little bit of intent for Wayne Lucas. So I think that one is interesting as well. All right, let's look out today. Oaklawn, their 8th race this afternoon. Optional claimer, claiming tags, $40,000. The condition, non-winners of 2 other than. These are 4-year-olds and up, scheduled to go a mile and 16th.
Another intriguing race. I was looking at the morning line, and you can see how wide open it is. I mean, you got Jacks the One as the 7-2 favorite with Tim Ritchie, and that horse is more than capable. But I'm going to go with the stakes-placed horse here, number 7, Carve. Now, this is a horse who ran second in the Zia Park Derby last time out at Zia Park. He ran third to Broadway Empire in the Oklahoma Derby prior to that. Now making the first start for Brad Cox. The horse has been working steadily at Oaklawn Park. And if I can get 4 to 1, I'll be very, very happy here.
Yeah, this is a nice little race. There's a few horses that have a little bit of stakes experience, but top certainly by Carve. And Carve, as you say, last year as a 3-year-old, was one of those horses kind of bouncing around that second level of derbies or 3-year-old races, put $250,000 in the bank off since November and moved out of the barn to Steve Asmussen. But Brad Cox, and he's the guy, he was with Midwest for a while, wasn't he?
He was with Midwest, and he actually started at Saratoga for Midwest in 2012, and then after a couple weeks into the meet, they let him go, and that's when J.B. Ness came in.
Right, yeah, and I knew his name was familiar, and to lose a client like that, but I've noted his name in the past performances of some of the tracks he's been bouncing around at, and he's got a pretty good percentage. So it seems like he came out of it okay, and certainly to get a horse like Carve in the barn shows that the horsemen are showing some confidence as well.
It happens all the time, because look what happened at Gulfstream Park this week, where Frank Calabrese let go of Kirk Zadie.
Was that what happened? Because I wasn't quite. I handicapped Gulfstream yesterday, and the two horses that moved to Gamaliel Vasquez both had gone from Zaidi. So I just wasn't sure whether there had been a switch from Calabrese, he had made a decision to move, or there had been a suspension. But you're saying he did take horses away from Zaidi.
Yeah, he did take him away from him. And Calabrese does it at least once a year. You know, he fires his trainers, and also here's Gammy Vasquez, who at one time trained for Michael Gill, trained for Bill Rickman when he was alive at Delaware Park. He's back out of a few years. He must have been an assistant somewhere, and let's see how long Vasquez is going to last at Calabrese, because one thing you have, you could ask Wayne Catalano, you don't last long training for Calabrese.
Yeah, and you know, over the years, you and I have been around the game long enough. There are some of these owners that kind of understandably have an ego. I mean, I pull the analogy of baseball and George Steinbrenner, the way he handled managers over the years. You know, you put the money into the game, and some of these guys, some owners are willing to just sit back and let the trainers make all the decisions, but understandably, some of the owners put in the money and they want to pull some of the strings, and so the egos get involved, and we've seen it plenty of times over the years with some of these major owners. As I say, the ego gets involved, and that happens. But I was interested because I had looked up Vasquez and saw that former relationship with Michael Gill, which I found interesting, but I just didn't know the backstory when I saw those changes yesterday, so that's good to know. All right, let's, before we talk about some other topics in the world of racing, I just want to look out on the weekend. Oh, before I go to this forward weekend, just want to go back and top of the show, I showed Gracer winning the Dearly Precious last week, and what a performance, and how unfortunate is that she's now retired.
She was terrific. I mean, we all expected her to do what she did. You know, but unfortunately, who knows how it happened, why it happened. I mean, some people might say that St. John probably should have wrapped up a little easier, didn't need to win by that long. Who knows about these things? You know, it just happened. It's just a shame that we're not going to get to see her stretch out, because she really had a lot of potential to be a very nice filly, and it would have been great to see her run. And, you know, she's going to be missed out there, because if I'm Tony Dutrow, I mean, it's not often you get a horse that could win you a lot of races and make a lot of money like she could have.
Yeah, 6 starts. She'd already had over $250,000 in the bank, and so yeah, it is unfortunate. A couple $100,000 in the bank. All right, let's look out at the weekend's Stymie down at Aqueduct. Presumably, with a couple of days, they'll be able to clean up and get racing. $100,000 purse on Saturday. 3-year-olds and up going 1 1/8 miles. It's a short field, but I think it's a fun, competitive field. And John, while we talk, I'm going to go back to the Traskwood at the end of December. We're going to watch the number 3 Mail win, and do so pretty convincingly for Chad Brown. Mail is in here on Saturday in the Stymie. Another horse that I think is going to be interesting is the Pletcher horse, Percussion, who ran the Big Buyer second place finish last time out in the evening attire. And the Kieran McLaughlin Farhand, I think, is also a little bit interesting. So as I say, there's only a field of 6 in here, but I think it's a fun, competitive race.
It definitely is, and what's going to make this even more intriguing will be the track condition, because as you could imagine, the inner track is sealed real tight right now, and there's lots of snow that's going to fall onto it, which is going to pack down that dirt even more. And they may go out and get all this snow out, but there will be some moisture in the racetrack. We're going to have a nice, tight racetrack, which could make it speed favoring. But if your top 2 choices are going to be speed horses, it may not matter how speed favoring this still could set up for a horse coming from off the pace. So if we get Percussion Mail to come off the pace and go crazy, could set up for a closer like Jonesy Boy or Farhand, who has more tactical speed. So I'll be very curious to see the early races here, but unless something tells me otherwise, I'm going to go with the speed. One of those 2 horses, Percussion or Mail.
Yeah, as I say, short field, but it looks like a fun race. All right, John, I've been asking everybody this week, all the guests, because last week was really a fun weekend of stakes action. First up, I'll ask if you saw the Fox Sport 1 Jockey Club Tour broadcast kicked off. I thought it was a good workmanlike performance. I think maybe they have to tweak a couple of things. Overall, I was satisfied with it, though. But did you see the broadcast, and what were your thoughts there?
I was very happy with the result because I did like Leah, and thank God I was on the same page with Migliori. We both liked them. I mean, Bill Mott, where have we seen this before? Taking an established horse from the grass to the dirt, win, taking the horse, taking it, making it a stakes runner, winning greatest stakes like he did with Cigar and Flat Out. I mean, this horse had the tactical advantage or will take charge. Mott's going to have fun with this horse. And I'm not saying he's going to be Cigar, but hey, now that he lost Flat Out, he has a nice replacement for him right now, and he could have a lot of fun. So I'll be very curious to see what happens. Will take charge. Hey, that was the time to beat him. He should improve off that effort, and I think Luis Saez realizes that maybe in the future it's great to save ground, but maybe he should make a move, try to get out a little earlier, make you move a little earlier. But you also have to wonder about that track condition because the ceiling of the racetrack prior to the race left some people wondering why did they do that.
Yeah, there's certainly, I've said a couple of times already this week, the move that Lee made at the top of the stretch just put Will Take Charge up against it. So there was you can't take anything away from that second place finish. I think he just, the way that Gulfstream Park strip is played, it was going to be tough to make up ground. So I think both of these top two finishers are going to be very, very interesting to watch in the handicap division. And a little earlier on the card, I've been getting everybody's opinion. How about Groupie Doll?
Oh, she was tremendous. I mean, if you're going to go, that's the way to do it. I mean, let's give Amanda Pope credit for putting her out there one last time, giving her a chance to go away on her terms, on the winning effort. And even though you were a little scared coming out of the gate, Rajiv did the right thing. He rode her like the champion that she is, didn't panic, just let her make her move. And maybe if you look at it, it was the right way to go about it because you want to exude that you're a champion. She did it. To me, she's a Hall of Fame horse. 5 years from now, she should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, she's just tremendous. And the only unfortunate thing is we couldn't see this live, even though the Fox broadcast did show it and the little graphic said it was live. You know, they're going to have to fix that a little bit. But she was tremendous. And the one other thing about that day of racing, it was great for Gulfstream Park, but at the same time a little disappointing because if you look at the handle numbers, I mean, they handled over 14 million that day, and it was a tremendous day, much more than what they did same time last year. But Saturday, they handled 16 million. Now, if you have national television coverage, you should be handling more on Sunday than you do on Saturday.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. But again, it was the inaugural broadcast, and it'll be interesting to maybe make comparisons at some other tracks as this series gets underway and maybe catches the attention a little bit more. That's interesting because, again, there'll be other Sunday broadcasts. So we'll be able to make similar comparisons down the road. Maybe as it gains more attention, that'll switch up a little bit. But that's a very interesting point. And also, just before we let you go, what were your thoughts on Game On Dude out in California?
Not surprising. Because the thing I've always said about Game On Dude is he's a tremendous horse, popular horse, but he's not the same horse. He's not the best older horse in America like people made him out to be. I've always said if you made him work, he's not going to win. Because last year the best horse he beat was Ron the Greek, who was very good, but wouldn't call it one of the top 5 older horses. And then once we saw him getting pressured by Blue Skies and Rainbow, we saw what happened. Yes, he did have the issues with the shoe and the foot, and that would have been the problem. But I think we've probably seen the best of Game On Dude, and I think they now realize you cannot be scared of the dude anymore. And as long as you make him work and run, he's not going to win.
Yeah, it's no question. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does next time out. All right, John, as always, we'll tell people to pop over to racingwithbruno.com to get your selections on racing days, and we appreciate your input for this afternoon, both at Fairgrounds and Oaklawn. So good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
Stay warm, everyone, and talk to you next week.
All right, thanks a lot. John DeSilva, racingwithbruno.com. We'll take our next break when we come back. Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. We'll look out at the weekend with them because I believe they are not racing this afternoon either. But again, a very nice stakes weekend for them coming up. Stay tuned.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Thursday morning, a snowy Thursday morning in much of the country. We're joined now by Dave Rodman from Laurel. And Dave, give us a little weather update down in your part of the country.
Well, as predicted, plenty of snow, and probably a little bit more for my area, at least, than they expected. They called for above the 6 to 8 or whatever, up to 10, but I measured it at a foot. So I finished the first round of shoveling the airport, BWI, not far from here, and not far from Laurel Park. Had a foot, and we're expecting kind of a second round this afternoon. The temps are above freezing now, a little bit of melting, but they're calling for more later this afternoon.
Jeez, yeah, it is certainly a big storm that's hitting everybody. The game plan, though, we're losing some racing today, but hopefully it's coming early enough so everybody gets to dig out for the weekend. Because as you've done all winter long down there at Laurel, every 3 weeks or so, there is a really nice stakes card down there. And speaking of which, we'll take a look at the Campbell and the Fritchie, which are on Saturdays. The General George this weekend, too?
The General George is Monday. This is our third cancellation day of the year due to weather conditions. So we added tomorrow to the schedule, which wasn't originally on the schedule because of a cancellation day in January, and the plan was to add a few more races on Saturdays to make up for that. So, yes, the General George Monday. They were going to take entries, Seth, today for Monday, but the racing office is closed because of the snow. A lot of our entry clerks and officials could not get in. So tomorrow we'll do double entries for not only Monday, but the following racing day too. So the George entries will not be out until tomorrow afternoon.
All right, we'll keep that in mind. But entries are out. Past performances are printed for the weekend stakes action. Let's take a look at the John B. Campbell. It is a handicap race, $100,000 purse, 9 furlongs the trip. And Dave, while we talk, I pulled up the Native Dancer from January 25th. Going to take a look at Bold Curlin getting it done here as 7-2, third choice in this race. Does it pretty convincingly. So Bold Curlin comes in for Trombo, Mike Trombetta, off of a pretty good race over the Laurel Strip. Seems to be in some pretty good form right now. Field is 7. What were your thoughts on the Campbell?
You got a couple of things going for you here with this horse. He's in-form horse. He may be just a horse who's getting better and can go on to better things at other tracks. Maybe he's just a horse who loves Laurel, but I can tell you Victor Carrasco gets along with the Curlin gelding here for Michael Trombetta, who seems to be the now horse, Bold Curlin. That was a tremendous ride, kind of in close quarters there at the furlong pole, splitting rivals. And when he sent him through, the horse just kind of took off under his own will there and goes on to win by a couple of lengths. He's got some kind of fluctuating numbers. I don't know what numbers people would look at, but he kind of ran an even 91-91. Then he comes back with a big, powerful 98 Beyer figure. But I was looking at the time form numbers, actually, and they had his race 2 back kind of as a decline in his numbers. But again, just like the Beyer figures, gave him pretty much a career top in his last start. He's the horse to beat. He's the now horse, and Victor Carrasco won 3 races here yesterday. He's turning into quite a battle here at Laurel Park between Carrasco, having lost his bug, and Trevor McCarthy, who is leading Carrasco by, I think, 3 as of yesterday afternoon. He also had a riding triple. But you've got a couple things going for you. The now horse fits with Carrasco, and he likes the surface. So 3 things actually here. Bull Curlin.
Yeah, he certainly, and again, that Beyer last time was also a lifetime best. So it just may signal this 4-year-old is really starting to come into his own this year. We also have the second place finisher from the native dancer, Indian Jones, who kind of to me looks like similar situation, came over to Laurel last time from his Parks base, ran that good second place finish with a decent Beyer figure that I'm just looking. Also, I think a lifetime, no, he had a 96 last year at one point, but pretty close to a lifetime best. He looks maybe
he's a horse who's just been knocking on the door here at Laurel. He's 0 for 4 here, but 3 seconds. And he's kind of a quirky horse in that he needs a good pace in front of him. And I mean, a really rock-solid pace in front of him. He just doesn't have a whole lot of early speed. And, looking at the race, I'm not quite sure we're going to get a rock roll kind of, crash and burn pace up front for his style here. But he's a very nice horse.
Yeah, no question about it. So, again, looks like a fun race.
Ursal's the horse that intrigues me from New York. Maybe you can help me a little bit with him, the Karen McLaughlin runner.
I just like the fact that Karen's decided to ship down for the race and take a little shot in there. That always has to attract your attention.
And I kind of heard a little bit of John's commentary before about, dealing with track conditions. This horse has won in the slop in the mud and run okay in the slop and mud at Gulfstream and Belmont. And we may have kind of a similar situation here Saturday at Laurel because we've had this snow, kind of a little bit of a meltdown this afternoon, getting colder again with more snow this evening. And even though it'll be taken off the track by tomorrow and the temperatures are going to warm, you have to wonder, there's got to be a little bit of moisture in the track, and Ursal can handle that kind of track, we know.
And I will also note, before we move on, we haven't mentioned Managed to Count, and I just bring this one up. A, he finished 3rd in the Native Dancer, but B, it's Jamie Nesson Midwest Thoroughbreds.
Yeah, Managed to Count, he's been tough here as well. His only try was that good 3rd place finish. He kind of made a middle move while wide in the turn, gets the inside, going the 9 furlongs, which is maybe not as important as going a mile and a 16th because you have a little bit of a run into the turn. He's intriguing. I mean, all he has to do is run back to his, career best or top to maybe turn the tables on Bull Curlin.
Yeah, and coming from those connections, you always have to pay attention. They're so potent. All right, let's look at the Barbara Fritchie. Also will be run on Saturday. Grade 2 event. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 7 furlongs. And Dave, while we talk here, I pulled up some video going back to January. Race number 4 at Gulfstream Park. It is Centrique, and I bring this one up because, as noted, in the previous race there were some trainers that attracted my attention, but I think you always have to pay extra attention when Marty Wolfson ships out of town, and this is a Marty Wolfson horse, Centrique. Won over a sloppy sealed track last time at Gulfstream. Perhaps, as you know, could get similar conditions at Laurel on Saturday, but I found Centrique kind of intriguing. What were your thoughts on the Fritchie?
I think this is an outstanding race. If Winning Image and La Verdad both stay in, and I'm sure they will, but that to me is kind of the storyline of the race. Centrique adds intrigue. I guess that's Centrique spelled sideways, right? Intrigue and Centrique.
No,
because she's in good form right now, but if you go way, way, way back in her form, she's a former claimer, if I recall, if you go way back to all of her PP lines, yet Marty Wolfson's got her in good form. Personally, I'm a little bit suspect of her. I think she's kind of been beating up on horses who had a a better reputation on the turf. On the other hand, she could be helped by the race flow here with the pace up front. So I'm not quite. I think Keith Fustel, our morning line maker, I was discussing it with him. He made her 3-1, so it gives her some respect. Thinks the public's really going to bet her here.
Yeah, and as noted, I always respect when Marty Wolfson ships out of town. But which direction do you think you're going to wind up going?
Well, I'm rooting for Tony Black.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Tony Black. I talked with Steve yesterday, Steve Bick, on his radio show, and we were wondering if Tony wins, does he become the oldest ever to win a graded stakes race in America?
Wow, that's a good question.
I know. We were saying there's nowhere really to look it up, but he's just 62 now, so it's certainly he would have to be right up there amongst the oldest. But that's great. There on Winning Image, that does give us a little rooting interest. A nice story.
Well, this is going to be the final race, according to Daily Racing Form, for Winning Image, and also, in addition, access to Charlie. I believe she also is going to be sent out as a broodmare as well. So we'll see kind of the final appearances from these mares. I'm thinking of Groupie Doll winning that final, that final try, going out in winning fashion. But the intriguing part about the Fritchie to me is the speed of La Verdad, the speed of Winning Image. I think that Winning Image is a little faster than La Verdad, which makes the race interesting right off the bat. But then the distance, that 7 furlongs, is a tricky distance. Winning Image has never been that 7 furlongs before, so she's certainly proved a medal, 8-time stakes winner in her career, and she's done just about all she could do in her best, sprinting at 6 furlongs. So, I think the race plays on whether you believe that La Verdad is as fast as Winning Image and they hook up, and somebody comes rolling from off the pace like a Centrique, or whether you believe that Winning Image is the fastest of the fast and could just skip along out there and have enough to stay. It's a great story, so sentimentally, I guess I'm kind of on Winning Image's side in here. But there's one other mare in here that kind of woke up to in discussing the race with a morning line maker. That is Billette from the John Service Barn. She beat a horse that was really in form down here at Laurel named Guard the Empire on a really sloppy track January 14th. Broke a beat slow, kind of moved up under her own courage, battled on a good pace, and then kind of won with mild urging in that race. And then she's the kind of horse maybe who can sit right off the pace. She doesn't kind of have to have that early lead. She's closed from off the pace before in her career. Is she as good as this group of horses? I don't know. But John Service shipping down meaning business here with Billette.
All right, and hopefully everybody digs out down there because, again, a big holiday stakes weekend of action. Again, on Monday, the General George. Entries for that will come out sometime tomorrow, but a couple of nice races, the Fritchie and the Campbell on Saturday. Dave, as always, appreciate the visit, and as noted, dig out, stay safe, and enjoy the racing on the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, Seth.
Thanks
See
a lot.
you then.
Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. We'll take our last break. When we come back, Frank Miramati from Oaklawn. Stay tuned.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here we come. Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Frank Maramati of Oaklawn Park. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning. Great to be back racing here at Oaklawn.
And give folks a little bit of an update. You guys, as I've said for the last week and a half, it's just affecting everybody this winter east of the Mississippi, north and south. But you had a tough hoe last weekend, but it looks like back racing this afternoon and into the holiday weekend.
Yes, I mean, we have beautiful weather. The weather, it's crazy. We actually got reports next week we might get into the 70s. I mean,
nice.
It's been a very, very wild deal. I just went to California for a couple of days, and I was sweating out. You never know what's going to happen. But the weather is beautiful, and we're back ready to rock and roll. This should be a huge weekend.
Yeah, it is definitely crazy winter weather-wise. All right, as there will be racing this afternoon, let's kick right into it. Opener today is an allowance, starter allowance at the 30 level, going 6 furlongs. You thought you had one in here that could really get people going with the early double.
I mean, seriously, if you could take even money, I would say take it with the 6. Hey, kitty, kitty, kitty. This horse, on paper, absolutely should clobber this field in the first. So I know even monies aren't the most exciting thing, but it's much better than tearing up your ticket on a 4-1 shot.
Yeah, if you can get the day started off, regardless of the price, that's always a good thing. And then you wanted to go out to the 3rd because that kicks off Classics today. And we have a little bit of a carryover there?
We do have a carryover of like 7,000. Keep in mind the Classics is a $1 pick 6 wager. And I do think the favorite is the right horse in there, Questley. But if you're looking for a long shot, maybe use the 10 as well. KJ Sweet Tater, she ran very well in her debut. In fact, the filly that beat her is pretty suspect. I definitely think KJ Sweet Tater is the better of those 2 fillies, and they're testing her against winners. But it all goes through the favorite, Questley, in there. I think a lot of people will be singling her to start the Classics.
All right, and
I got a price horse for you in this sequence for sure that I think has to be used. If you go to the 6th race, I think the morning line on number 7, Tavera, is not a very good one. This horse will get bet, but I think this is a horse that you may get some value with in a multi-race wager, such as the pick 3 or the actual Classics itself. Tavera won very nicely. She was 10-1 that day. The horse that ran second, Spicy Lady, came back to win by 15 lengths. 7th place finisher in there came back to win. There were some other good efforts. That was a strong race. And this race was redrawn when they were going to run it last week. Tavera drew the rail. She got a much more favorable post today. And I think 6-1, I got to believe she'll be 3-1. But I think that when it comes down to multi-race wagers, that's where you can benefit with a good morning line.
All right, sounds good. And finally, let's look out at race 8 this afternoon. Optional claimer, 40 tags, non-winners of 2 other than the condition. They'll go a mile and a 16th.
You know, this is an interesting race. I picked Carve on top just based on his previous form and where he was. Brad Cox has him. You have to believe he's going to fire as his biggest shot for the new trainer right now. But there are some others in here that you could also consider, particularly a couple of long shots. Number 3, Moonshine Mullen, as very nicely noted by the chart callers here, did have some traffic issues, was kind of in between horses, and didn't have the smoothest of trips last time. I think he's capable of a decent effort at 8-1. And Sir Bond at 15-1. I mean, there was a time when Sir Bond would have been 6-5 against this field earlier in his career. And I just think that, he had a lackluster effort last time, but it was a good effort. There were 3 horses that have run back out of that race. 2 of them won. The other one ran second at the fairgrounds. Sir Bond is 1-for-1 on this track. 15-1 is too high on him. And I think if you have to include one other one, Jack's the 1, the 10, if you're spreading to try to close out the pick 6 today.
Yeah, number 11, Sir Bond, is kind of interesting on the potential horse for a course angle. It's Steve Asmussen, comes up from Fairgrounds, 15-1 on an Asmussen horse, always very intriguing. All right, Frank, let's take a quick look out at some of the weekend action because it's shaping up to be a nice holiday weekend at many venues, including Oaklawn. First up on Saturday, you have the Essex $100,000 purse, going a mile and a 16th, 4-year-olds and up. While we're talking, I got a little video here going back to the January allowance optional claimer win by Steelcase. Steelcase, going back a couple of years ago, showed some promise as a 3-year-old for Mark Cassie, lightly raced last year with only the 1 start, but now it's got a couple of starts this year, and this race we're going to look at, the stretch run, number 2 Steelcase at Oaklawn on January 26th, may indicate this one's bouncing back. What were your thoughts in the Essex?
I do like this horse quite a bit, actually. I think he figures. I like the way he won. He improved off his effort in the 5th season where Drogue romped home, and I think the Mark Cassie horses that have gotten a race over the track, and in this case 2, are going to be improving. I think that's a good angle to pay attention to. I think some of his horses may have needed a race, and you might excuse some of the performances that you've seen from that outstanding barn. In this particular spot, I think another horse you have to consider is Mavericking. He made a move on January 31st. I thought he was about to gallop around the far turn. I mean, he loomed up like he was just going to go right by, and then he just hit a brick wall at about the 8th pole. And I think that he must have needed the race, even though it was only 6 weeks after his previous start. The way he stopped just had the look of either a horse who bled or needed the race or something, because it just looked like he was going to do better. And then I have to say, Win Willie is a horse I think you have to completely take a stand against. He is not the same horse that we saw, years ago. He's a fan favorite. He gets overbet, and I think you got to toss him out. I don't think he'll win.
Yeah, he was really disappointing on the comeback. I was kind of surprised to see him in this spot, but again, he is a fan favorite. Frank, before we go, only got a couple of minutes left. So again, also on Saturday, the rescheduled King Cotton. I think that's going to be a fun race. Pico's Pride looked a little interesting to me there, but I want to get right out to a big day you guys have scheduled on Monday, because it is going to be the Southwest. And while we talk, I just wanted to show the career debut once again from Paganal, who I think is going to be very interesting for Cody Autry. This is going back to January 11th, number 10 Paganal, again in the career debut, just gets up at 7-1, but I think he's going to be an interesting horse, scheduled to run on Monday as well. The return of Strong Mandate, Tanzanite Cat coming out of the Smarty Jones also, and another horse that I'm interested in, Louis Flower, who was the winner of that Springboard Mile, which has been so productive over the past couple of years. What are you thinking heading into the Southwest?
Well, I mean, look at Paganal, the horse who he beat by a nose in that race. Street Strategy came back to win ultra impressively, stretching out. And then there was another horse in there that finished about 5th that came back and marched by over 10. So that was a very, very productive race. But this is a tough spot now. All of a sudden you get Strong Mandate in here. And I'll tell you what happened. You'll laugh. Dwayne Lucas, I had mentioned when Street Strategy won, when I came back for the preview for the next race, I said, hey, this is a horse that will be, on his way to the Arkansas Derby. And Lucas, who's very, he's a cool guy, and he and I get along extremely well, he actually called the press box, and he says to me, he said, well, look, before you start anointing this horse the Arkansas Derby winner, don't forget about Strong Mandate. And I said, hey, I never said that. But it was funny because some of the other trainers were kind of ribbing him, saying, hey, Dwayne, he's saying this Street Strategy is the Arkansas Derby winner. So he wants to come out with guns blazing, and it's going to be a great race. But I think, the race definitely goes through Strong Mandate. He's ready to roll.
Yeah, I've been surprised the past couple of weeks here on the show. We've talked to people about the 3-year-old scene, and there have been a couple of people who are really waiting for that return of Strong Mandate. Even looking at what Cairo Prince did a couple of weeks ago and whatnot, Strong Mandate has gotten a lot of attention from folks I respect their opinion of. So shaping up to be a really nice weekend down at Oaklawn, and certainly happy that the weather has turned there, because I love Oaklawn this time of year. A lot of value there, so I missed it last week, but I'm glad things are back on track weather-wise. Frank, as always, appreciate the visit, and we'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for your support.
Thanks. Frank Miramonte from Oaklawn Park. A little earlier on, Dave Rodman from Laurel, and we kick things off today with John DeSilva from RacingWithBruno.com. We're right at the top of the hour. We had plenty of action today, so I'll wrap things up. Racing Across America here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. We'll be back tomorrow as we wrap up the week for more Racing Across America. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.